Hey everyone, my name's Jeff Skalski. I'm one of the producers here at Mythic Entertainment, and next to me is
Gabe Amatangelo and Counter-Strike team lead. We're going to be talking about the new dungeon coming up, the Land of the Dead.
the Tomb Kings.
Yes.
About time. It's going to be a good summer. So we're bringing war to the desert, and I'm going to ask Gabe some questions. So just to get this kind of started. So, explain what are the Tomb Kings? Who are they?
Well, the Tomb Kings, in the Warhammer world, there's a bunch of different armies. The Tomb Kings is an army. They occupy the Land of the Dead, which is a vast desert wasteland. Thousands and thousands of years ago, they were this prosperous empire, going across the land, pillaging, taking treasures, and of course souls. And they wanted to live forever. And so they had these high priests who were constantly, tirelessly seeking the secrets for immortality. Unfortunately, they didn't find it by the time their kings died, so they preserved their bodies. And then long after, thousands of years later, after their vast empire was now crumbling ruins and just a wasteland, there was a big necromantic sort of accident that happened, and they all came back to life as undead. And they weren't happy to see how their empire was. And so they were bitter and they were angry, and they hate all living things.
Okay, all right. So how does that fit in our Warhammer Online world with the Order and Destruction?
Good question. I'm glad you asked that. So how and why do Order and Destruction want to afford an expedition to go out here? Well, Malekith, thousands of years ago, was familiar with the Tomb King armies. And they had this thing called the Casket of Souls, which basically, throughout all their conquests, they just kept dumping all the souls in there. So there's a metric ton of souls in there. So Malekith and Char-Xanic got together, and they're like, hey, if we had that Casket of Souls, we could bolster our armies, and we could fuel all our machines of war, our hell cannons, all those kind of things. And if we had that, that's a huge battery we can do a lot of damage with. So they sent out an expedition to track down and find one of these Casket of Souls. Of course, when they did, they woke up these armies. And so then these armies started retaliating. This gave rise to Karl Franz's curiosities. What are these guys up to? They started to research, and they saw what they were up to, and they know the consequences of such an action if they were to get these Casket of Souls. Of course, there's a lot of political intrigue and different stuff within the hierarchy of the Tomb King's army, the Tomb King versus the Tomb Princes. There's a lot of other different threads going on, but that's the gist of it. That's the sum of it.
Okay, cool. So let's break it down for everybody. Just basically the setting of the Land of the Dead and talking about the Tomb of the Vulture Lord a bit. Just like how's the land broken up and what can players expect?
Sure. So the Land of the Dead is a massive area. The dungeon is going to be focusing on two of those areas. Well, more specifically, the Necropolis of Xandri, which is the northern part of the Land of the Dead. And that is where the Tomb King, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I know, Tomb King Amenhotep, which is also known as the Vulture Lord, where he resides, where he was buried. So they head out there, and then the setting is going to be the necropolis surrounding his pyramid, the Pyramid of the Vulture Lord, and of course inside the pyramid. Two different zones.
Okay, awesome. So, I mean, as a player, I've done Bastion Stair, Lost Spell, and all that. Like, what's kind of size? What's the scope of the new content I'm going to experience?
The Necropolis of Xandri, that's a zone. I mean, that's the size of maybe the entire length of the Bastion Stair, the size of like Averlorn or Ekryn. It's a zone.
Awesome.
The Pyramid of the Vulture Lord, that's about the size of the Lost Vale.
Okay, great.
Sort of a linear dungeon crawl, whereas the other one's like a zone, which is kind of like a kind of flower kind of dungeon crawl, where it's like you got to hit a bunch of different points to get into what we have as layers, instance layers. So you have to cover the different spots, get the puzzles, get the glyphs to then get into the layers.
Okay, awesome. All right, so that definitely covers a lot of the basics that we wanted to get out there for the players on Tomb Kings and the Land of the Dead and Tomb of the Vulture Lord. So what are some of the things we expect to cover in the next upcoming podcast?
Yeah, it's the basics, but I want to talk about a lot more. We'll be talking about the RVR gating mechanic, the campaign gating mechanic, how do people get in there, which a lot of people definitely want to know. We'll be talking about tokens, all the fat rewards, we'll be talking about boss fights, we'll be talking about glyphs, we'll be talking about traps, purging. We'll be talking about purging.
Okay, Gabe, we got 2 more podcasts to do, so just calm down a little bit, man. Calm down, relax.
They want to hear it, I want to get it out there. But okay, we'll save it for the next one.
Yes, we'll save it for the next one. So next time around, we'll bring up those highlights that Gabe's is talking about.
And
We're really excited. Purge.
Absolutely.
Really excited about the Purge. So really appreciate it, guys. See you around for the next production podcast.
Thank you.
Take care.